not my problem. When I'm feeling this metal, and I'm pissed and I'm needle. When I lie and I'm missing all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please don't miss you.
All right, we got a great podcast today. Wednesday. I thought it was Tuesday for some reason, but then I realized it was Wednesday.
No,
Um,
listen. You know how it is during camp season. I don't know what day it is. It's Dog's Day practice. It's just repeat and go. Right? Like I'm losing it. I was 100% until I was like, oh, Wednesday. Right? Okay, here we go. Tis the season, buddy. Tis the season.
Yep. As always, Prospect Podcast. I have myself, Coach Human here, and to my left, Coach D, and we have our great guest today. We're excited to talk about sports in general. She's become a TikTok star too, as well. A former high school athletic director, and now pharmaceutical rep, and has three sons, and is a breast cancer survivor. She's really done some amazing things. She talks about all that stuff on social. So I'm not saying anything you can't go find and see some great content on. So welcome, Morgane. Is it Morgane? Morgane Watkins.
It's Morgan.
Morgane Watkins. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
We're really excited to talk to you. It's it's a world athletics today, and you have three boys, so you understand it all too well. Where there's constantly changing environment, it's an exciting environment, but you also have that administrative perspective where you've kind of dealt with some of these things. So we're really excited to talk to you. I think your TikToks are really interesting because, as I said before, I'm always trying to figure out when you're ready to go to war. But before we dive into all that, just kind of give everyone your background and sports athletics, administration, and then also obviously where you are today.
Yeah. So I grew up on the sidelines with my dad. He was a college basketball coach. So I kind of from my first memories, I'm in the gym with him, under the bleachers, I'm just running around, and, that just was kind of my lifestyle. So my sister and I spent a lot of time in the gym. We played basketball. We both ended up playing college basketball. So sports has just always been, a huge part of my life. From my dad traveling and being on the recruiting trail, I can remember my mom and I listening to his teams on the radio, and just seeing, how my mom was, always so supportive of wherever he was traveling to. We would have some of his basketball players that, were from out of the country would stay with us at Christmas. I mean, it was just like, they really taught me about, that sports is about being, something bigger than yourself, and that it truly can be like your extended family, if not, considered your family. So playing sports for me was just kind of, part of life. Like I said, I played basketball, ended up playing in college. I'm a little small. I'm about 5'4", but I was a little bit mean. So that helped me, I think, a little bit. So fast forward, I played college basketball, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do coming out. I had a biology degree and thought that I was going to go to medical school, but it turns out that I pass out. And so that, I had the brains, but I didn't have it, the rest of what it took. And so I spent a lot of time on picking myself up off the floor when I was trying to kind of observe and see if this was for me. So I ended up getting into teaching, and I didn't have a teaching degree. I had just a biology degree, but there was a high school, Morristown East, that needed an assistant basketball coach, and they actually needed a biology teacher. So I had never lived in Morristown. I ended up moving, interviewed for the job, all that, of course, beforehand, and was hired with no teaching experience. And I walk into a classroom teaching freshmen at Morse East in 2006, and it was kind of overwhelming. But that's the best way to learn, I think, is just to dive right in. So while I was, and I dive in, I did. And kids will baptize you quick.
Real quick.
So some of the stories that I, when I'm talking on TikTok, like they're true. There's been a goat in the building. There's all these things, So I do have the experience in some of those crazy stories. So I ended up falling in love with teaching. I loved coaching. And I taught for 6 years, and during that time, started a family, and then also started continuing my education. So now I'm a certified teacher, and I can see that maybe I want to get into administration and kind of continue doing those types of things. So after teaching for 6 years, I ended up finishing my master's. And in Tennessee, you take a test, and it certifies you to be an administrator K-12. So they don't really care if you're athletic director, if you're elementary principal, however that works. So I had taken the test and graduated, let's say May 15th, and then an assistant principal's job and athletic director's job opened at my high school. And this is 2011, and I'm not somebody that, is just going to throw my name in to throw my name in. So I remember thinking like, hey, there's no way they're going to give me this job because there's never been a female athletic director that I even knew within the area. And so my dad, who at this time is a college athletic director, he's retired from coaching. He's an AD at a Division II school in Tennessee. I call him and I'm like, I'm thinking about interviewing. And he said, I'm going to give you some advice. Don't ever interview for a job that you don't think you're qualified for and you don't think you can get. And number two, I'm going to tell you, as an athletic director, there's nothing that I do that I'm better at because I'm a man. So he very much encouraged me to apply. And I did. And I ended up kind of shocking myself and getting that job. And so in 2011, I became the first female athletic director at Morse East. There has not been another female there. And I was the first, and I think still only, female athletic director in that conference. And probably maybe 3, 4, 5. And there was a couple women that kind of, were before me and sort of laid the foundation in Tennessee, but there were not many when we would go to athletic directors conferences and things like, I think people thought I was there as like an athletic trainer or something like, oh, yeah. No, I'm an AD too, brother. So, and I did that 2011 to 2021. So I spent almost 16 years at that high school. Some of the best memories and stories. And I loved athletic director was probably my favorite part of the job. Working with coaches, seeing athletes hit their potential, have a lot of passion for sports, and just was a really, really good time in my life. Certainly nothing happened other than my kids were growing up. And we kind of talked before the show got started that athletic director, if that job is done well, it is truly a year-round job. So there is no off season for an AD. And if you are supporting your coaches, supporting your athletes, building school culture, building a community around those athletics, it's really a full-time job. So the only reason that I'm doing anything else is because, and I told you guys, I spend a lot of time watching other people's kids do things and supporting them. And as mine got older and really got into sports and got into their own, I felt like I needed to be more present. And the main job I was concerned about was being a mom, and I really wanted to be good at that.
No doubt about it. That's always the toughest dilemma as an athletic director, or even when a coach standpoint, especially in football. It's so hard. You're working with other people's kids, and then sometimes you neglect your own kids if you're doing that process. And you really have to you have to make choices, and coaches have to try to figure out if there's a balance. Athletic director, obviously, it's much more difficult from a balance standpoint, at least at the high school level. But obviously, as you move up the ladder, if you coach at college, those things are full time, no matter what it is. And so there's choices, and it's difficult because you're not sure if you're doing the right thing. Like you say to yourself, If is my focusing on them actually helping them, or does it not create the resilience it needs, or by me being focused on them, um, or if you choose the other way, is that is the neglect going to cause them to not be as, I don't know, in sports as good as they could be? I
Sure.
don't think academically it's really an issue either way. I really do think, although I think some parent has to obviously be at home to enforce them doing schoolwork, because sometimes kids don't want to do it, but
Right.
they don't want to. So someone has to be enforced in that in some way, capacity wise. But athletics, interestingly enough, um, requires a lot of time from the parent, especially in today's era where they're shuffling from different things. If they're playing multiple
Mhm.
sports, um,
Absolutely.
so whereas academically, for the most part, they could do a lot of the work from home and from their computer, and if they got to read, they're it's a different aspect. Or if there's someone that needs help, they can go to Kumon or one of those things to go and get help, and there's usually one right in their backyard. But athletically, it does require time. The only reason I'm knowledgeable about it, because I was a coach for 20 years at the high school level, and a head coach for 13 years of those at football, um and in 2021 I stepped down as football coach, and it was right when my son was 6 years old, right? So he was just starting to start sports.
Yep.
Now, that wasn't completely what weighed into the decision. There are other factors that were associated. But once I had stepped down, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to go back right away. I really focused on that part of it. And then once I started focusing on that, I was like, I don't know if I could go back to coaching high school, because you see that they could use your help from some things. So it really is tough, a tough decision. But you're right. I found that I think it overall is benefiting my child. Everybody's different, but is that something that you thought needed to be a focus, to be able to help them with those things and figure out things along the way with that?
Well, I certainly don't want to come across as I'm saying like that people that are still actively ADs or coaches are missing out,
Right.
in doing so. So I want to just make sure I clear the air there. But for me, so I have 3 boys, and one of those, my oldest, is a gymnast. And I did not do gymnastics. I didn't really understand gymnastics. He ended up very early on we figured out he had some talent, and the level and the commitment for that sport was just like mind-blowing. So we're talking like 4-hour practices for a 9-year-old, and the gym was an hour from the high school that I was at. So, I mean, I was run in Tennessee. We say run ragged. I don't know if y'all say that, but I was run down, and it takes a village. But in the scheme of things, like, I was going back to the high school, and because I also was over scheduling. So I didn't just do athletics. I had a lot, kind of things going on. And I spent Sunday nights there. Almost every Sunday night I was at the high school until like 11 or midnight. And it's scary being in a high school at night. They're not fun places.
Yeah.
Old.
No, hell no.
Like, it was like one of the oldest schools still standing in the state of Tennessee. I'm like, oh my God, get me out of here. Every little thing you would hear.
You start hearing things.
I love a good horror movie, but I don't want to be the star. Like always looking at the cameras. My kids would go to work with me, but they're not going to be able to go at midnight. They're in bed. And just small things like being able to take him to practice and not run back and watch a baseball game and then go back and pick him up. I hadn't taken my kids to school, and I couldn't tell you when. I didn't get to make their breakfast because you have to be at the high school, in the morning to let kids in. So just small things like that I felt like I was missing out on. And then my sister was a pharmaceutical rep already. And she and I were on a trip together, and I had taken off 5 days, and it was near graduation. This is kind of what we were actually at a gymnastics event that my son was competing in Florida. And I picked her up from the airport, and my phone was ringing, and like it was. By the time I drove her back to our hotel, she said, "Did you not?" When I hung up, she said, "Did you not take off work?" And I was like, "Yeah, I took off work." And she said, "Well, why are they still calling you?" I'm like, "Because they need me to answer something." You know, like at high school, people are in their lane. They stay in the lane. Like this principal does this teacher does this person does this. So there were things that I needed to address and talk about. And so she was just like her head, you know, her mind was blown, because in the world of pharma and kind of big corporate, if you're off, they leave you alone. You know, so that was like a novel idea to me. And she was like, "You know, I think you would really excel as a pharmaceutical rep." And I was like, that was May. By July, I had a job in that same year. And, you know, I give her credit because I really thought, I was 40 years old, and you kind of have this mindset. Like I thought, okay, I'm too old. Even though I don't think 40 is old, but I felt like I was too old to change careers. I was working on my doctorate in education, which I actually have now. I finished it as a pharma rep, because it was important to me to have my doctorate, and my company allowed me to kind of do that. But I give her credit for saying, you know, your skills as an educator translate to so many different things. Being able to just be engaging, you know, because I'm going in and talking to doctors, and you all know how it's like to talk to a classroom of high school kids. It's harder to talk to adults, you know, doing PD and things with, you know, coaches meetings, all those things are tough. So July of 21, I made the very, very tough decision, but to leave that school. But ultimately, I feel like it benefited my kids, and is still benefiting them, because I very rarely, the only time I'm missing one is probably because I'm at, you know, another kid's game. So I have 3. I've played a zone offense or a zone defense with them for a long time, where, you know, you're outnumbered.
Yeah.
So somebody is missing something. But, you know, that, I hope that kind of answers your question. I went, you know, a little sideways with it, but had I stayed as an educator, had I stayed as an athletic director, I don't think that my kids would necessarily be in any different space, but I think I would be. Right. So for me personally, because I have a village, their dad is very involved. Their grandparents have all said that we're, you know, they truly are blessed. But mom guilt, parent guilt is a real thing. And for me, this was what I needed to do to be, you know, the best version of myself. That was something that I didn't want to have any regrets about.
That's a great point. It becomes, you know, that you have a very short time period with them, at least where you're with them, right? So till they're 18, and then you hope after that, when they go off to college, that they continue to stay involved with you.
I didn't put my tissues out. Don't give me too much of this.
That's the hardest part, and there's no doubt. But like, you know, when you first have, I have a son that's 10 years old. But like when they're first a baby, you know, you're thinking, this is taking a while, especially that first year, even though it's great. But like, you know, it's with you, they're with you constantly. So every minute you're like, wow, it'd be pretty cool to get to like 2 years old here, you know, so they can move around a little bit on their own. And then but then all of a sudden it like starts just going downhill fast. You're like, wait a minute, how is this happening? All right,
how did we get here?
Yeah, how did we get here? So you know, I think at least those first 18 years, obviously, you know, they're always going to need you, but that's the one time that they're 100% going to be with you. And it seems like a short time period, but it really, really isn't, you know. And it's crazy because I tell this to Derek all the time. When you're young and you're like, you know, 20 years old, the world seems like it's moving slow, but once it starts to get to your mid-20s, then you're late, then 30, it rolls even faster. I'm 51, so 40 was like, wait, what happened? I went to 50 fast.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's an interesting. So being able to be a part of their lives is a good thing as much as you can. And obviously, everybody's in different situations. Everybody has different preferences. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that one way is the right way, but
That's right.
everybody has different preferences. But you have to know what for you, and you obviously identified that what is going to have you live with no regrets and have you live with what you're able to move forward with. So I think it's really, really cool. You're some of the lessons as an athletic director and then your unique perspective from that standpoint. Um, there were so many things have changed in sports just in the last 10 years, even, and probably five years college wise,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
uh
absolutely.
but and things are always continuing to change, man. um it's a unique thing, even obviously from the time you played too. What were some of the things that you saw as athletic director, and that changed, and some of the, and obviously it leads into your TikTok too, and what you had to start to kind of get your head wrapped around, you know what I mean? That were like, whoa, like I need to get my head wrapped around this. I need to solve this issue. We need to get boundaries on this issue. What were some of the things that you saw from that standpoint?
So as far as AD would go, I really tried to be a good buffer for my coaches. I think unless people have really got into athletics at the high school level or college level, you don't see what they do day in and day out. So if I could kind of take some of that, whether it was logistics or, backdoor planning kind of things off of their plate. And it took me a while to kind of get there because my first year, I'll be honest, I mean, I was pregnant with my third child. My head was kind of spinning. I just was sort of treading water there the first year. I don't feel like I was very helpful. My first year too, our football team was 1-9. And that's a tough spot to be in because I can tell you the school dynamic, behavior, attendance, everything will sway with a good football season. Everything.
I'm with Morgan.
100% true.
Not to
Derek
cut you
says
off.
this all the time. He says it all the time.
I literally it's look, and not to cut you off, but it's literally the best years. I've been coaching high school football now for 16 years. Add on the time I was in school. When that football season goes well, I don't care the demographics of your school. I don't care the size of your school. I don't care where you are or whatever it is. Everything else, the entire school year just flows so smooth. Yeah, you're gonna have your
100%.
issue, but it's nothing. That's the thermometer for how this school year is gonna go. And talk
Totally
to any, in my eyes, above, higher level or a good administrator will tell you the exact same thing. It's the tone setter, man. It's the tone setter. It's the biggest team in the school. Everybody knows who most schools, irregardless of what you want to know about it, one of the first things it
starts the year off. And it starts the year off.
Absolutely.
At the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? Like,
you might win a baseball state championship, but you're sure as hell people are still going to know whether or not what you did in football. Like, that's just how it goes.
1,000,000%. And that's not even, I hate saying when people would use major sports, minor sports, and, we would try to get to say revenue, non-revenue, whatever. Every sport is important for the kid and they all bring 100%. That value, but Absolutely. You cannot compete. Somebody says on TikTok, you can't compete where you don't compare. I mean, football just sets the tone. So, attendance, I'm talking about kids being in the building I guarantee you, if we went back and looked at the attendance rates, they were higher on years that our football program was better. Test scores, academics, everything falls in line behind a successful, well-run football program. It is huge. And football coaches are as known in the community, maybe even more so than the principal of a building. More than the director of the district. Like, it is a very, very important position. And all your coaches are, but it's just hard to, it's hard to compare with that and what it can really mean. So like I said, that first year we were 1-9. My second year we went 9-1. And it was like, people were talking about that our high school had a heartbeat for the first time. Like, we had kids in the stands. We were doing flash mobs in the stands. We were having, and I have to say, like, my principal at the time who hired me, really, I would go to him with some ideas and he would look at me like, but he trusted me and we went with it. And, you know, we were on, you know, at the time it was Twitter. Our student section was all over Twitter. Those kids still will reach out to me. They're not kids anymore. You know, they're in their 20s. I went back and spoke at their graduation because we had that football season that we all kind of got behind, and the school spirit was so high. We, you know, and it wasn't just, I'm not saying me. I mean, like there was a lot of teachers that kind of got involved with that, and it was really a group effort, but man, that was big. It was big. So again, I go off on a tangent. I'm bad for that, but you know, that to me was, you know, trying to be where I could be first line and coaches could concentrate on coaching. So if a parent needed to come in, I'm going to try to, you know, kind of hold them off. Like, hey, is there something I can talk to you about? Like,
right.
And I tried to keep coaches out of meetings, you know, unless we absolutely had to, you know, and so when and I think most of the people that I was an athletic director with and they were coaches would say that I did really try to make sure that coaching was that they could focus on. And I tried to take as much, you know, because I will tell you during COVID, I don't wish that on anybody. We
lived it.
Oh, I know.
That was the end of that was my last year of coaching. That was it for me.
After that, I was like, goodbye.
I was dealing with so much nonsense. It was just like,
oh yeah, buddy. So Dave and I were coaches together.
Now you're in the South, so you guys probably got a little more flexibility as, yeah.
Oh yeah, here it was.
Yeah, we live in New Jersey. Oh my God, like everything was a nightmare. So
I bet I can only imagine all the people driving in their car, just themselves with their masks.
Yes, they were living. Yes, drive.
I'm like, there's no one in there.
Derek was coaching with me at that time, and we had nice plans to be at a place for a long time, and that unfortunately that unfolded where that was it. And I kind of, when I stepped away, and it was mutual. Believe me, the school was happy to have me away too. And then obviously Derek went and coached at another place. We were like, oh, that was 2 years ago. You know, we were thinking this was going to be like a, you know, at least a 5 or 6, 10-year deal, maybe. I don't know. But
look, we had long-term plan, but it ended up being a quick little learning experience, right? Quick little learning experience.
COVID
well, I think, and to kind of piggyback on that, Morgan, right? Like, and Dave and I have talked about this too. I think that time period when COVID hit and kind of put a pause on everything really showed a lot of coaches and educators, right? A lot of different things and viewpoints where, you know, just how much time a coach was really putting into it. You know what I mean? Especially like you're talking football because it was spring. So there's really not your season, but it's still your off season. So we know how high school coaching is. It's 365, 7 days a week. Absolutely. Now you put pause on that, and now you start to see the time away from your family or your own personal time where you're kind of looking at it going, damn, like, and have to be more efficient with things, right? So now things that would drag out or you were set for, you know, longer periods of time, you now didn't have a choice but to condense and do less and make it work. And then people really saw like, hey, I can do this, you know, with less time, or, you know, a lot of the interactive stuff when it came to like, you know, Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. Do we really have to be physically in the building right now? Yes, there's give and take with that, and you know, in far of being in school and things like that, because there was a lot of decisions. I mean, we lost some players to other schools that were going back in person, and we were still, you know, doing somewhat of a hybrid model, right? So I just think it opened a lot of eyes into like, shit, like I'm spending all this time away from my house, away from my family, or just like this time that I have for me mentally, right? Like I can get this done, or I don't really need to do this. Like I don't really enjoy it. I like this time off.
My biggest thing was the make-believe caring about what was in the kids' best interest. I thought it was all make-believe. So, and of course, in New Jersey, I was at odds, of course, because of that. So, you can imagine in New Jersey, I'm politically on the opposite side of most of the coaches and teachers in New Jersey.
You would have
Not
fit into
coaches, not
Tennessee.
coaches per se, but teachers
Yeah.
definitely.
I always say
and
that to Dave. I said, Dave, you should be below a Mason Dixon line guy.
yeah,
buddy.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we're-
I'd be fine there. But
yeah.
but as far as but yeah, I was always like it used to always drive me crazy. It would be like, okay, we play football, but you don't want us to practice. But aren't we? You're concerned about them getting sick, but aren't you concerned about one of them getting hurt? Like we're not even practicing. Like they're gonna go out there and just like not know what they're doing. You know what I mean? And you because
I mean, we did.
no one can ever give me answers to those questions, by the way. So that was part of my whole thing. I was like, man, you know what opened my eyes? How self-interested most people really were. Like everybody's self-interested,
Sure.
worried about their own
Preservation,
family,
yeah.
but like just not caring about how it affects kids. How it affects kids in the sense that like. I mean, to me, it was like kids who were poor and didn't have like really good parental situations. Man, if it was hard, couldn't get food. Some of those kids, like you know what I mean? Like it was like they relied on school for food. You know, there were kids that relied on school for food, right? So those kind of things is what bothered me. And then they try to make some things you could come to school, grab food. But it was all
Right.
like
how are they supposed to
we,
get there? Are you providing?
Right. How are we supposed to get it? My parent.
It's not like they're going to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, especially kids who financially are in different situations, like like we're doing it for those kids. Well, those kids need to be able to eat. Like their parent has to go, is a frontline worker, right? Is a nurse or is something. She's working 18 hours now, where she was working 10 to 12 before. She's never home. And, and so that whole kind of thing opened my eyes. But that's not here or there at this point, I guess. But it opened my eyes into really like how things can be. And there were obviously people on the other side that were fantastic about certain things too. But it opened my eyes educationally, at least in New Jersey, how things could be. And part of me was like, how do I? And at that point, my philosophy changed because my kid was now going to parochial school at that point because I wasn't having him sitting around, all day doing nothing. So, but it was an interesting world. I'm curious, as and you talked a lot about it, where you deal with parents, and I think this is the number one thing, like both athletes and parents and their expectations, right? And you could talk this, by the way, not just as an athletic director, but as a parent as well.
Okay.
What are some of the things that you think parents need to understand about sports and athletics today in setting their own expectations? And then my part B, I'll let you answer that, but then my thing is also for the athlete as well.
So I think one thing to always try to keep, I'm very competitive, very. I want to win, and I really want to win. I want my kids to win. But I think if parents could just kind of take their own thoughts out of it and just let your kids have a good time. Most kids are not complaining. Most kids are okay, and they kind of, for the most part, know why they're on the bench or why they were taken out. And you have situations where, those kids know how the locker room talk is. Those kids know how their practices are run. They know what kind of effort they gave. Your parents don't know that. Parents can't possibly understand the ins and outs. Maybe the kid doesn't know the offense because the parent's not going to understand the offense. Maybe they just don't see them doing the little things. So I know everybody wants their kid to play, and they want their kid to have a good time. But I think if we could just genuinely take a step back and be supportive, and just support the kid being a part of something bigger than themselves, because they're giving blood, sweat, and tears, even if they're not playing every minute on a Friday night. They're still putting in the time to be a part of that team and to be a part of, again, something so much bigger than themselves. Because when you get out into the workplace, they love hiring athletes. They're not going to ask you if you were a superstar. They don't care. the fact that you made it those 4 years,
part
or
of a
you don't have to
team.
play, you don't have to play in college. You don't have to do any of that. And this would translate to band. This translates to, whatever it is, theater.
Yep.
I'm not just saying athletes, but I'm speaking to what I know. When you can be a part of something bigger than yourself and you find your role there, whatever that role may be. And if parents could just take a step back from that, I think that it would be so much easier, because like I said, I think kids know why they're not playing. I think kids know when, maybe they're not hitting the expectation of a coach for the most part.
They know.
And then you run into, and I would see this a lot, kids that didn't get a lot of attention, positive attention from parents. And you could tell maybe they were just seeking more attention from their parents, would sometimes, when their mom or dad were upset about something with a coach, they kind of naturally would gravitate and move that up, because that parent is defending them in some way. And they love that.
Right.
Feels good. It feels
Like,
good.
oh my God, they're actually looking out for me. I'm actually in the spotlight.
You got it. They're willing to fight for me. So I think that's something for, educators and coaches to keep in mind. When it looks like kids are kind of telling things, they probably are just really happy, and it feels good for somebody to defend you. It feels good for somebody to fight for you. And so I think that's where parents are messing up, and they're creating those barriers, and maybe putting a wedge between a coach and a player that doesn't need to be there. And then a couple of things go without saying. I think, when your kid gets in the car after a bad game, I've had to kind of learn this. They don't need me to tell them what they did wrong. Right. They also don't need me, we all act a fool. Again, I'm Knoxville.
I had to learn it too.
It's a tough lesson. It was tough for me as a parent. But, I've been to Neyland Stadium and we're yelling at 21-year-olds. Nobody wants to win more than them.
Right.
And so nobody wants to win more than your kid. Your kid wants to absolutely tear it up every Friday or whatever sport they're doing. Give them a little grace. So I think that's the big thing. It's just try to support your kids having fun. You're not going to understand every decision that a coach makes because you're not there with them day in and day out. It's 99.9% of the time, it's not personal to a kid.
Oh, God, never.
It has nothing to do with the kid's personality. They are putting the pieces together that they think gives them the best opportunity to win. It has nothing to do with your kid. So that would be my advice. Take away that personal aspect. They're not out to get your kid. Coaches are not doing it for the money at the high school level.
No.
They're making pennies on the dollar.
You don't got to remind me. You don't got to remind me. Good.
So that would be my thing. I made a TikTok where I was going into some things with coaches, and I made a joke about, parents that want to watch every practice straight to war. And I had some parents come at me, they're like, I want to watch every practice. I want to do this. I'm like, that's okay. If you feel and your coach is okay with that. But I'm thinking about parents trying to come in and watch volleyball practice. You can't get in a building. The security is just, it's just so different. So I was more like, just kind of thinking that, but
that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Football is probably or baseball,
different.
where they could come watch that and are probably
you're outside.
That's how I answered back. I said, if you're watching football, track, those things are so much easier, even soccer,
right?
Unless the stadiums are closed. But if you're trying to come in and watch, basketball is what I played, so I kind of am thinking that if you want to come in and watch basketball or volleyball or that, we're not going to let you come in. We wouldn't have because our building. It was more important for me. And I would say this to parents, hey, my number one goal every single day, you might not be happy with me, but I want your kid to feel loved and I want your kid to feel safe. And that you may not agree with how we got there, but you're not the number one priority. Your kid is.
I'm curious if, if on the flip side of that, if a parent had a valid, so let's say a coach was, and I don't know if you ever dealt with that where a coach was, right? Yeah. So holding some sort of either it had zero to do with the athlete doing something wrong or his ability, right? I would say anything else obviously is usually on the athlete, but if it's zero, his effort is as high as possible, he listens, and he's a guy that belongs as the starter or is clearly a guy that should be a guy, and a coach for some reason isn't is taking something out on him or whatever that is. Have you ever had that? And how have you dealt with that?
So I wouldn't say that I had specifically where a coach wasn't playing the kid. And I think that's really tricky as an AD because
Yep.
I'm also not sitting at practice.
Right.
I
Right.
also don't know. So I
Good point.
never made
Yeah, you're not
assumption.
there.
You got it. So I hope I didn't. I can't recall a time that I ever
Yeah.
said, "Hey, coach, I think this kid should be playing," because that's not in my lane. They're
Correct.
seeing film. They know how this kid was at workouts in the weight room. I had to have people in those positions that I trusted to make decisions in the best interest of kids. And if I didn't trust them, then we're looking for somebody else next year. Because so that would have been my way to solve that. I still, even though if I had ever felt like a kid should have been playing, I would not have stepped there because
I remember one instance that I thought about when we were at RBR, Derek, and I didn't notice it until it was the second year when we were COVID. But Derek would remember this. Our basketball coach, because our football players were really two of our best guys were basketball players, and they were really dedicated to football in football season. And he had a ton of basketball workouts. And the guy was a good guy, by the way. I'm prefacing it with I like the basketball coach. Me and Derek both really liked him a lot. He was a good guy. But he held it against them in the beginning of the season, meaning he refused to start him. You know what I mean? And now eventually
And they were bona fide
they were
starters, by the
losing.
way. Like,
They started losing right away. You know, and eventually they were in there pretty quick. I mean, it was by like game 2 or 3, might have been game 3 that they were back out there starting.
Yeah.
But it was pretty clear, you know, like, you know, look, there are some places where, you know, this was our starting quarterback and our star receiver. One plays football at Richmond now. The other one played for 4. I think he's done now, right there. Played
he just
for 4
finished
years
at Salve.
at a Division III school where he started, right? And they were clearly probably among the 2 of the best athletes in the school. Now,
2 of the best kids in the school, by the way, too, probably, right? Like,
too.
they were good humans as well. So
now, maybe the first week of practice, I get it. Like, maybe they hadn't dribbled as much in the fall, so they probably maybe were a little sloppier. But believe me, these were kids that, like, in 3 days was, you know, almost, you know, we're quickly close to where. So that's one instance. And like I say, the coach was a good coach. He was a good guy. Like, he was always great to us. I just thought that was clearly unfair, and that was a situation where it was like, just because those guys came to every fall practice, you know, and to me in sports, and Derek probably agrees with me on this, you know, that's one area we don't want to hold things against, because in smaller schools, you want kids to play multiple sports because it helps your team. Right? So it discourages that. It discourages those kids playing another sport. You know, I don't know if there would have been a kid that would have been football or not, but like, it discourages, or baseball, whatever it is. It discourages that. So, like, to me, I would have said, I would, like, as an athletic director, to me, the first thought would have been like, you know, because the parents actually said something to me, you know, the players actually said something to me. And I think one of them said something to Derek, right? A kid. So, we were just like, hey, just do, you know, whatever it is, and
doing what you're doing.
The cream will rise to the top. Which you did.
Yeah. You'll be fine. Like, I know it sucks, but you'll be fine, right? Like, just do what you do. Continue to trust trust in what we're telling you. Like, it will come to fruition, right? Because no coach wants to go 0-5 to start a season, so you'll be in there eventually, right? Like, it's okay. Hey, if you got to shoot a couple extra free throws after practice, like, get it done, right? Or
I feel like he was probably balancing his parents.
I agree.
Kids that went
100%.
to everything.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Here comes 2 guys. Now, my philosophy as a coach, and some parents don't like this, but my philosophy as a coach is, because I've had kids like that have come in late over the years. Like, I had a kid that went and played in the NFL for 5 years. He was a basketball player. Didn't start. He was 6'6". He didn't start practice till August, and I could tell you 1 week later he was starting. So, you know, and everybody else has been working out for 6 months. So my philosophy always is like, hey, Yes, we want you working as hard as you can, but there are some people that are just genetically a little bit bigger or faster or whatever, and they're going to move right into that role. And I know it's very tough for parents to hear that. It's very tough for kids to hear that. But, I was curious because that's just one instance to me, and that's it is a tough situation for the coach.
And I think he potentially could have mitigated some of that. I'm always with kids. I think oversharing or over communicating is the best. Right. And so my suggestion as an AD to that coach would have been, hey, if these guys are not going to come in and earn a spot right away, that's of course your prerogative, but let's have a conversation with them about why.
Right. Transparency, right?
Yes. So like they know, hey, these guys have been here and they've earned a starting spot before you finish with football. I need you to show, because it's only fair to them, that without a shadow of a doubt, you beat them out of that starting spot because they're an important part of the team also. So those kinds of things, kids will typically, like if you have a conversation with them where they know that you respect them, you have their best interests, you care about them, they'll buy in. You've heard the whole thing. If you're a coach that, a kid would run through a wall for you. And I think that is because those coaches are communicating, and, you could mitigate so many things with just having an open dialogue. But some people, I don't know if they feel like kids are not on that level, or they just, they feel like it's beneath them to have to communicate things to people that aren't.
I think they're worried about them not playing.
Yeah.
I think they would worry, like especially this happens to be, I think this was their senior year, right, Derek? So I think you would worry about a kid who was already thinking about going to college for football, saying to himself, like, I'm just trying to be in a coach's shoes, if I'm transparent that you're probably not going to start because you weren't ready right away. And those kids, you might have those kids turn around and say, you know what, I'll just go train I'm going to college. So, but I agree. I think you have to risk that. I think you have to risk that with them. I think your answer is, I don't know what the answer was, but I think your answer is as good an answer as there possibly is, in the sense that being transparent, you have the risk of that kid saying, you know what, I'm not going to do it. We had it on our own football team where we had a superstar athlete who played hockey and played lacrosse, and he wanted the ball more. And I just said, hey man, like, our system is not the same system as last year, and our offense is a little more where our quarterback runs the ball more. He's a long ball thrower. He's not as the guy before was a more of an intermediate and shorter ball thrower, which this kid really suited well for. And he was like, well, you're going down the field to this guy instead of me. I said, well, this guy is faster, so, but it doesn't, and we were transparent, and I think we lost that guy the last couple of games, right? Because of that, but I think you do have to be transparent, because in the long run, that works better for your overall program. People will say, hey, you know what? I didn't like the answer, but he gave me the answer. You know what I mean? Versus not, and then, treading water, because eventually that comes back. That comes back to bite you. And I can think back to any time, probably when I was younger as a head coach, I probably did it at some point. And you tread and you try to play both worlds, and it just doesn't work out. You're just better off being straight. Now that I coach youth football, that's the hardest of all. But when a parent says, hey, why isn't my kid getting in? I said, hey, have you watched your, because they all are at practice. I'm like, do you watch your kid at practice? Okay. Do you watch him?
Yeah, blinders.
Have you asked, have you seen, he doesn't even, we did tackling drills. He was going the opposite direction. So, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like,
football may not be his bag.
No, or I said, you know what, kid's developing.
That's right.
He may, down the line, I'm not saying, I have no idea how big he's going to be down the line. He may be a great football player. That's why you do want him to stay in the mix. But if you're looking at the now part of it, like, you have to kind of be honest with yourself and say, like, where is he at? And also, just because one brother or sibling is a great athlete does not mean the other one is. That's a hard one too for parents, I think.
Very hard.
Very hard, because so hard. Listen, in my and my sister's an athletic director, so she's climbed my brother coaches a track in college, and my sister's an athletic director at a college, and she'd be the first to tell you, my brother, I wasn't that great of an athlete. My brothers were the better athletes, and it is hard because I remember when she was the youngest, she was growing up. And the pressure we would be like yelling at her, like, and when she would run track, or like, why is she back that far? And it wasn't that she ended up being pretty good, but it was just me and my brother were used to winning. You know what I mean? So we were like, what's going on here? And we thought she just didn't work hard. It was like, well, there's talent levels too. You know what I mean? There's talent levels too. She did not quite have. She's the best looking, so that's the good part about it for her. But and she's probably the most. Has climbed the highest because she has the ability to work with lots of people. Everybody has different gifts, and so I say, like, you were the worst athlete in the family, but you've easily climbed the farthest in athletics of all of us. So you're the queen of it all. You're better than all of us.
Yeah.
But it's really, really interesting. On your TikTok channel, you talk so much about, like, you dive right in the quick instances on a lot of different things. And what do you hope, like, parents and athletes come away with some of the things that you talk about, and maybe administrators too, right? Because I'm sure athletic directors are watching what you're talking about too.
Well, I've come at them a little bit too.
Yep.
Where they,
and good for you. I love it.
I think I said something about, where we're treating coaches differently based off, I really bragged on the football program here, but that didn't mean I was treating the tennis coach, like a dog.
Right.
So I kind of did that part. But, as far as parents and kids, when I'm making this content, I am truly joking, but I am hitting on areas that probably are bothering coaches or are bothering teachers and things like that. So if you are taking offense to my TikTok when I'm not speaking to you, that means you're probably doing those things.
100%.
And maybe, so I'm not talking to anyone in particular. I don't have anybody in mind. And so when I know I've got a hot button and somebody's come back with me, they were triggered by what I said because of how
Absolutely.
it made them feel. So
Yep.
if I'm hitting a nerve, I would just say, hey, I promise you, I am as good-hearted person. I try to be a great human being. I'm not talking to you specifically. I'm sorry for hurting your feelings, but if I did hurt your feelings, let's think about why. And maybe you're doing something that, if you're not an educator, you might not understand how that works, and so I think it's important to take a step back because we can all say something that we don't, it doesn't matter how I say it. It matters how you perceive it. That's the reality. So I think that if parents and kids and everybody can kind of try to rework that a little bit, because I don't mean to offend people, but then I got to take a look at, well, what did I say and how was it perceived? But I am kind of poking them a little bit with some of the things that I know would annoy a coach or would annoy a teacher, to just, hey, if you're doing these things, maybe, let's just try a different approach.
I love what you said. You said when a parent comes to the coach and says I'm failing, and they have a game that day, and it's like, or similarly a teacher, right? Like game day. Oh, by the way, but I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. They because it triggers in their brain because there's a game that everybody's going to go to on Friday.
Right. They're wearing their jersey, right? They're standing like, oh, wait a minute.
But that is not the day to talk to the coach.
Yes. And that's when the teacher does come. The teacher always would come to me on Friday of a game. Be like, so-and-so has been a problem in my class. Can you talk to him? And I'm like, you bringing this to me on Friday? Like,
I agree.
And the worst part about it is, it triggers in their brain. I get why they thought of it.
I get it too.
Because and now they're bringing it to me. But the worst part about it is I'm getting ready for the game, so I'm gonna forget it. Okay, which means because I'm gonna think to myself, I'll tell them on Monday when it's all the game's over. I don't want to distract them for a game, and then I forget, and then the teacher's coming back again the next Friday. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really good because it was one like as a coach, I'm always quick to be like, yeah, I'll take care of it because I'm always like, hey, I'll take care of it.
Of course. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. But it does happen to coaches where you're like, if they come to you on that day, you will like, I know me, I know how I am. I'll forget, like even if I write it down, like and put it somewhere, like I'm not going to see it again. And then all of a sudden they're going to come to me again. And I'm like, oh, can you just please stop giving this teacher a hard time?
Just kind of gently suggest.
Yes.
I wasn't saying not to tell a coach about a kid failing. I wasn't saying not to talk to coaches about behavior.
Time it better.
Let's time it a little better. Friday night before a football game is not the time. Their brain is full. And, coaches are not losing jobs because of their teaching ability. Coaches are losing jobs because of wins and losses. So they have an additional layer of stress that a classroom teacher who has a tremendous amount of stress also has. But, coaches typically are losing jobs because of their record, even if they're great in the classroom. So sometimes, because they lose their coaching job, that can be easily taken away. They're going somewhere else. So, I just, it's just, again, something like, here's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe we could try to do a little, because really my thought is I miss education. I love that. I was good at what I did there. I was great with kids. And I think, from somebody that's no longer there, maybe just take a few of these little nuances and we can have a lot happier, better culture, I think.
And you were an athlete too. So you understand how that feels to have things brought to you, at certain times. And like, look, I always said there's plenty of coaches that really weren't great at sports per se that are great coaches. Okay. But a lot of times if a teacher didn't play a sport or really wasn't great, they may not empathize with what's going on with an athlete. And I think that sometimes they have to take that opportunity to do so. Yeah. And just empathize with it. And by the way, there's plenty of great teachers that do. There are plenty of great teachers that are really good about it. Like I could think of a couple of teachers over the years that like would personally try to help some of the football players. So the coach, like if a XYZ teacher had an issue, they would take it upon themselves. They were not even involved in the football program to try and help those kids on their own. MVPs. So it never had to never even have to come to the football coach because this person liked these kids and wanted to take care of it for them. And I always thought that was great. So obviously there's both sides of it. It's easy. Social media is probably, I would say, not only is it easy to talk about the negative, sometimes it's fun to talk about the negative too. So, so it's one of those things, but there are both sides of it that there are people that have done a phenomenal job in helping kids and stuff like that. Before we let you go, within your own kids' experience in athletics, what were some of the things, and they're still going through it, obviously, but what are some of the things you try to guide them with, from a parent's perspective, and obviously with the background that you already have, to help them to continue to improve, to be the best that they could be? Because I think people relate to like not what you telling them to do, but what you're doing in your own experiences.
Yeah. We want, I think, as far as teaching my boys, we're going to be good teammates. And that translates to being good people. We're going to be coachable because, again, even as a player, they don't understand, like, my son who's playing a guard at the high school up the road is not seeing what other kids are coming in the gym and getting shots up. He doesn't know, when they're working, how they're doing, their strength. So we're not there to question coaches. And I think that's important. So I want to be, it's a fine line. I want to be someone that they can, speak to in a safe space. But I think how parents respond in that sense, because like I said, being a good teammate, being a good leader on your team and being coachable, you kind of have to have, some ways about how you communicate and going out and talking about your teammates to other teammates, going out and talking about your coach. Like we don't encourage that kind of, behavior, because that just is, that just breeds outside of, of that. And then I think it's assuming positive intent. I think that's important in any walk of life. So the vast majority of disagreements, whatever they are, is because somebody had this expectation and it didn't get met. So making sure that my kids have a voice and that they can communicate, whether, they need to communicate with a coach about something, they can do that on their own. I encourage them to have the confidence and the voice to do that. I don't want to fight their battles for them. And if my kids, I would not go to a coach about playing time, but I would encourage my kid to do that. If my kid was truly questioning, because I don't feel like I have a leg to stand on, because again, I'm not seeing practice. I'm not there every day. My assumption is that the coach is going to want to put the best kids out there at any given time because they want to win. And you're not that. But if you want to know how to get more time, that's a conversation you need to have with the coach. I'm not, I don't need to do that for you. That to me is, now I'm not talking about a fifth grader, but like we're talking about high school athletes. I've got 2 kids that are in high school. Yep. Those are conversations that they can have. And to me, that prepares them for life. So them being able to communicate, have a voice, assume positive intent. I think that helps me in my day-to-day life. And then something that I try to teach kids as an administrator, and I try to teach my own, is we're giving respect because it's the right thing to do, not because we expect anything in return. So I'm going to be, if I had a kid come into my office and they were up here and they were yelling and they were at, 100, my response to them is like, this is who I am. And your reaction is not going to get me to come out of who I know I am. So you can come down and we can have a conversation, but I'm going to be respectful to you, even if you don't and are not capable of showing it to me. I'm giving you respect because it's the right thing to do. And I think that that's, kind of the message. If we can get kids, coaches, teachers, everybody to just kind of fall into that, things will run so much smoother. So I'm trying to teach that to my boys.
That last point is a great point. That's a tough one.
It is.
That very, very difficult to bring down the temperature of things, and it's so you could actually have a conversation, especially when one party is not, the temperature is real high. And it's an interesting thing when someone could do that. I have to say there's tremendous amount of credit. Head coaches obviously have to be able to do that in order to do their job, and ADs I'm sure have to be able to do that in order to do their job. But yeah, it's overall, and I think that's a big thing that the hard part at high school is that it's been already going on from the time they're in youth, and these high temperature conversations, and it trickles into high school because it used to have a philosophy where it's top down, like emulate what the top people are doing. But what's kind of happened a lot of is like a lot of emulation of what's happened at the bottom and bringing it higher up. And that's part that is important. I think high schools have a real opportunity to squash that. The really good athletic departments can really, by being transparent, like you said, and being able to set the stage on things, can squash that. And parents, I think, once they realize there's nowhere to go on this kind of thing, if they want to take their kid to another school, obviously they can. But and you're welcome to do that. Like if they don't want to comply, that they absolutely should. I say that all the time, and like people are like, "Oh, well, you would lose this kid." I'm like, addition by subtraction. Exactly. Sometimes it's addition by subtraction. So, you definitely want to do that, and I think that's real important. And I think it's a really good way of approaching it. So, awesome having you on, Derek. I don't know if you have anything else from your side.
No, it's been great. It's been great. I thoroughly enjoyed it, getting a totally different perspective, from someone who's done it a certain way, and I can't thank you enough, Morgan. I know you're always busy, always got a lot of things going on, but I'm glad we got in touch with each other, and I'm glad it all worked out and we could get this on and get it done. It's been nothing but a pleasure. So we thank you so much for the time. and educating, some of our viewers on maybe some things that they didn't really think of or look at it from that perspective. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. You're truly a leader. Keep
that.
enjoying, keep working hard, and keep loving those kids up. You know what I mean? So
I'm going to do that, and maybe I'll come to Jersey sometime.
Absolutely.
Oh, hell.
Have you.
Oh,
We'll
hell. Listen, we'd love it. All right. Thank you. Take care. We'll talk soon.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. That was great. I think she has a really good perspective. Actually, it's a shame that she's not in athletics anymore, but I fully understand why. So
yeah, and totally respect everything about it. You know what I mean? It is hard, and it is. I think the job of an athletic director, right? There's so much time where people really don't know, because everybody just looks out. Oh, they're an administrator. Yeah, but they're boots on the ground administrator, right? Like, and no offense to principals or VPs, but they're boots on the ground, like, school session, right? Like, yeah, but we're talking weekends, nights, right? Like, athletic director, you're traveling because, if you want to do it the right way, you need to show face at everything you possibly can. You know what I'm saying? And there is a lot of things. I mean, any type of postseason play, like, your face needs to be there. So now you're piggybacking on all school events and everything going on, plus school day, on top of extracurricular sports stuff. Like, after, whenever that stuff is happening, like, you need to show face. Now, I'm not saying you're at every practice for every sport. That's impossible. But you need to be there. And it is no summers off, like she said, like Morgan was talking about. Like, that's not you know what I mean? Like, you're in that building still doing your administration work, right? You're monitoring your coaches, and you set the tone, right, for what coaches are. And it's not like, you don't grade coaches. Like, wins and losses are a piece of it, but to me, it's about, our kids coming out for your program, right? Like, what are other kids within the building saying about that program, or other coaches? Because when you have an away game and it's somewhere else, right? Like, oh, this school does this, or whatever it is, that needs to be in a positive light. And you monitor all of that. Ultimately, the coach sets the tone for their own team. But as the athletic director, there is an overall, we are one giant organization as the school, right? And it all falls under this high school name, or this school name, whatever it is. Everything else has to trickle down. Whereas head coach, and you have to kind of keep all that in line on top of your administrative duties within whatever you need to do, because we know how a lot of administrators might be in charge of other things, right? Like, when we were at RVR, Dell handled all the clubs and activities that went on in the school too. He ran all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, they wear a lot of hats. They put in a lot of freaking time. They're boots on the ground. I mean, don't bitch at them when they don't wear a shirt and a tie and they're wearing a polo, because that's the one thing that they can deliver, right? Or in our case, ripped jeans for shorts. Like, that's fine too, Dell. That was a great look. But he got shit done, right? I mean, he'd be out there lining the field sometimes because, hey, man, if it's something that's got to be done for my teams, we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, so I give athletic directors a lot of credit. It's a hard thing. And Dave, I think it's even harder nowadays because everybody wants to play sports, irregardless. And that transition from middle school sports or rec sports to now you're in high school and you're on a varsity team. Like, I'm sure you're dealing with parents a lot more now, because it's just everybody wants to be a part of sports, man.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And I want to send you, I have some extra microphones and an arm that I'd like to send you, so it might help your, because I got myself another one.
And you got another one?
Yeah, well, I got it for free, believe it or not, because of it was like there was something I wanted on Temu. So
Temu.
as I go to get it, it says you get 7 free gifts. So like, you know, you can only choose certain things. Well,
Yeah.
they happen to have like a little bit like
Some bikes.
yeah, Mike's. I'm like, you know, I'll take another one as a free thing, and then I can give Derek the one I was using, and that way now he gets I think that's how I got the other one, by the way, same kind of thing. So you know, I mean, I don't think I paid for a mic, dude. I think I'm getting it for free every time I go on TV.
That's sick. Yeah, well, listen.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've talked like when I upgraded to the one that I have now, right? Like from just using obviously what like the generic audio that we have. I mean.
Right.
That was one of the that was immediate. You're like, oh shit, like I could definitely tell a difference. But I'll always listen. I'll take whatever we got, man.
Well,
whatever we can do.
You could put it as an arm because then it could come into, you know what I'm saying? So like I can move this away.
Then we can get the little closer, and then we can
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Look at you moving up in the world.
Yep. Well, I couldn't believe it.
Timu knows who you are now, buddy.
Timu is, listen, they give me more great cheap shit. Dude, I'm like, I could use another dumbbell, right?
You're like, oh yeah. You're like, wait, this jump rope
like $200.
Sure, come on, yeah.
At Dick's, it's like $200. I get it for Tebow for like 10. You know, like
because it doesn't have a Nike swoosh on it. Like I'm pretty sure it's sick shit.
I mean, I don't know. I don't probably contribute to something really bad, but
100%.
But I'm like, you know what? Like, why would I want to pay $200 for the same thing I can get for $10? And it won't last as long. But
that's it.
Do I need it to last long? I mean, you know, so
China's winning the arms race anyway. Fun.
They're definitely winning in that. There's no doubt they're winning in that. Yeah, I mean, Amazon is now like basically like Temu heavy. You know, it's like all like knockoff stuff, but.
And then think about it. The second you get that thing's in your algorithm, like I can't help it. If it shows up that much, it's got a better shot of making things happen, right? So
it's amazing how I'm like, oh, how did they know that I was thinking I need another one of those things?
Right. You're like, damn, they know me so well.
Jeez, they're probably watching everything. Yeah, they're definitely
monitoring every freaking click on your phone.
They know everything that I like.
They also know every place we've been. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, this guy loves Wawa. Like,
yeah. I do. How do they know I needed another? I wanted agility squares instead of an agility ladder.
Oh my god, dude!
I already bought an agility ladder, so you might as well buy agility squares.
Listen, yeah, it was for me. It was, oh wait, like, you know, I needed a laser pointer for film, right? Like now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I bet you he wants a green one. Like they just know. I'm like, of course I want a green one. I'm at a school with green. Damn it! Like,
purchase.
Oh man,
thank
you. Card on file.
And it's so cheap that, like, you know, when things are like $50 or something, I think twice. You know what I mean? But if it's like $10 or $15 or $20,
yeah, because now it's like, hey, if it isn't what it was, then screw it. It was only $10.
I just throw it in the garbage. Really, I don't even bother returning it most of the time. I just throw it right in the garbage. You know,
wild.
So, but yeah, it is interesting. All right, till next time. Friday, right?
Friday. Yeah. George Muha, who basically created what was more Sussex Sports, is now Garden State Sports. So
is that in the morning?
It's that is on 1 p.m. on Friday. So last week of afternoon, guys, hopefully, but you know, if we can, you know, like I said, it's more of availability. It's a little, you know,
I think it'll be fine.
We should be good. If not, hey, I mean,
it should be good. Our whole team's going to the Jets game that night.
Nice. Yeah. You should be fine. You should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm excited to talk to him. I mean, literally, I knew him back in shit. I think it was like 2014 when he was trying to like start this whole. You know what I mean? Like he was getting really. He really didn't like that the newspapers weren't covering sports the way they used to, and he had built this thing into a freaking monster, right? I mean, covering every sport you could possibly think of from a high school angle, you know, live coverage, this stream, that stream, you know, I mean, they run it out of Morris County College. So it's really cool. He's got interns and people working for, I mean, it's awesome to see just like totally from the ground up. So I'm excited to talk to him.
Very cool. That'll be great. That'll be great. All right. Well, till next time.
Till then, all right.
See you Friday.